success of the Beatles' feature films A Hard Day's Night and Help prompted British bands like the Dave Clark Five and Herman's Hermits to follow suit and make their debut on the big screen. After the worldwide success of Satisfaction in mid-1965, the Stones also wanted to become celluloid heroes. This is the story of the Stones' feature film that never was.
Fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a bumpy night.
On July 1965, Stones manager Andrew Oldham announced to the press that the Stones were due to start shooting their first feature film in December. Oldham told the press that the film would be called Back Behind and In Front, and he added that Mick and Keith would write all their own songs for the film and arranger Mike Leander would write additional background music for it. Oldham also said that 2 American scriptwriters were traveling with the Stones on their current US tour to do preliminary work. The film would be produced by Oldham and American business manager Alan Klein, and it would be shot in England and in 4 Iron Curtain countries. That same month, Mick was interviewed by Disc magazine about the American tour, the film, and older people's reaction to them. Jagger said, "In the hotel lobby the other day, an 80-year-old woman asked me if I was one of the Supremes, and she wasn't kidding. As far as the film is concerned, I hope David Bailey will do camera work on the picture." Mick added, "It's going to be weird and full of suspense. I can't say much about the story now, but it's strange. The sort of thing where everyone dies in the middle. We're even lending a hand on the script." While in America, the Stones started working on the soundtrack and spent 4 days recording at RCA Studios in Hollywood. According to Bill Wyman's book Rolling with the Stones, the album Aftermath was intended to be the film's soundtrack. New Musical Express reported that while the Stones were recording, Andrew Oldham and Alan Klein were also in Hollywood negotiating American distribution for the picture. The magazine also claimed that Marianne Faithfull would star in the film. A week later, however, Oldham and Klein denied Marianne's involvement. 6 months later, in May 1966, the press officially announced that the first proposed Stones film Back Behind and In Front would now not be made. Instead, the Stones were going to start working on a different film called Only Lovers Left Alive. The film was an adaptation of a book of the same name by Dave Wallis, written and published 2 years before. Andrew Oldham said, "The Stones will all have starring roles on it, which will be a basic projection of themselves in the film situation." The press humorously added, "Rumors that Charlie Watts had requested the picture to be a silent movie were unfounded." The description on the back cover of the book gave a pretty good idea of what the novel was about.
The adults have committed suicide with easy-way pills, and the teenagers have taken over. Free to smash, loot and love as they like, the gangs roar through the streets on their expendable brand-new motorcycles in search of disappearing stocks of lipstick, petrol and food. Free of adult control, the youngsters commit every sin but hypocrisy, until they meet the future.
The novel's post-apocalyptic theme shared similarities with other novels from that era such as Absolute Beginners and A Clockwork Orange. The Daily Mail carried an interview with Dave Wallis' wife, in which she condemned the Stones' role in the forthcoming film adaptation of Only Lovers Left Alive. The wife said,
"The book had a serious subject. But with these people in it, I don't see it being taken as a serious film."
Mick Jagger angrily replied in Disc magazine and said, "If I'd written a book, I'd be very pleased that somebody of box office appeal was going to act in the film version. Anyhow, I wouldn't condemn a film as bad, until I'd seen it. If we wanted to make a funny film, we would have gotten a funny storyline. We have every intention of treating this film as seriously as the subject demands." A month later, American magazine KRLA Beat reported that the Stones would be receiving $1 million for their motion picture debut. On October, Melody Maker magazine interviewed Brian Jones and he seemed pretty excited about the film. Brian said, "We seem to have been talking about making a film for years, and it has been a topic of much discussion amongst ourselves for a long time. And of course we have known that negotiations have been in an advanced stage, but now that it has been finalized we are more excited than ever. We have every confidence in our ability, and I don't think it will prove difficult to direct us. We all have our individual abilities, and if they work on those abilities, I'm sure that the Stones image will come through. Let's face it, the group is a welding of our 5 individual characters. I personally was never a great film goer, but since we began talking about making a film I've been much more interested. I have even started running films at home. I'm now making a point of seeing several films each week when possible." That same month, journalist Keith Oldham from New Musical Express visited Keith Richards and Brian Jones at Brian's new flat in London. Keith and Brian told the journalist that they had been undergoing some kind of preliminary dramatic coaching, involving acting techniques, in London. Keith Richards also said that they were all going to have to take elocution lessons for the film because they were told they mumbled too much. Brian Jones had installed a cinema projector in the lounge and conversation turned to the film shows that he and Keith had been giving in the apartment. Keith said, "We recently had All Quiet on the Western Front. It was great. Now we are trying to get I Am a Fugitive from a Chain Gang, which starred Paul Mooney. That's another good oldie." Nicholas Ray, who directed films such as Rebel Without a Cause and Johnny Guitar, had been in touch with Oldham and Klein and he was interested in directing the film. And Gillian Freeman, who had written the novel The Leather Boys in 1961 and wrote the screenplay for its film adaptation in 1964, was approached to write the script. Ray and Freeman reportedly wrote a draft of a script for the film. However, the Stones management lacked confidence in Nicholas Ray's ability to pull off the project, and financial backing was withdrawn. This is not surprising because by 1966, Nicholas Ray's reputation in the film industry was at an all-time low due to his serious alcohol and drug abuse. His last film, 55 Days at Peking, had lost $7 million due to the fact that Ray collapsed on the set, and 2 assistants had to take over the director's role. The Daily Sketch reported that Willis Hall and Keith Waterhouse, who had written the scripts for films such as Billy Liar and Whistle Down the Wind, among many others, had also been approached to write the film script. By the end of 1966, however, the press was already speculating that the film might have been shelved. Melody Maker reported,
The Rolling Stones' first feature film, Only Lovers Left Alive, may have been shelved. A spokesman for the British Film Institute said, "As far as we know, the film has not got past the project stage yet." Stones manager Andrew Oldham was not available for comment. But a spokesman for Decca Records said, "The whole matter is surrounded in legalities. As far as we know, there have been no new developments. If the Stones proceed with the film, it is unlikely that they will be able to commence work until the middle of next year."
In the end, the project never got off the ground. But this was not the only failed film project that year. In early 1966, Mick Jagger told the press that he was about to start working on a short film to be directed by David Bailey, one of Britain's most popular photographers. Bailey had shot a couple of album covers for the Stones and he was one of Mick's closest friends. Jagger was even best man at David Bailey's wedding to French actress Catherine Deneuve. The short film was going to be called The Assassination of Mick Jagger and it was supposed to be about a pop star who is condemned to death by a bunch of middle-aged establishment types. Jagger, not surprisingly, changed his mind and decided not to star in the film. The picture, finally called Gigi Passion, was made with Eric Swain in the lead, a photographer and former boyfriend of Pattie Boyd. Jagger's girlfriend at the time, Chrissy Shrimpton, also appeared in the film. The script was written by Bailey and Gerard Bratch, who had written Repulsion with Roman Polanski. And Polanski himself produced the short film for £6,000. But this was not the only film project that David Bailey had in mind for Mick Jagger. Bailey also wanted to do a film adaptation of A Clockwork Orange by Anthony Burgess, featuring Mick Jagger as the star and the rest of the Stones as his gang. Bailey blamed Stones manager Andrew Oldham for the failure of this project. Oldham owned the rights to the Anthony Burgess novel and according to Bailey, he demanded too much cash. Of course, as everyone knows, Stanley Kubrick finally directed a film adaptation of A Clockwork Orange a few years later, in 1972. In 2013, Jim Jarmusch directed a film called Only Lovers Left Alive. The director confessed that he took the title from the Dave Wallis book, but it was not a film adaptation of the novel. So this was the story of the Stones feature film that never was. We'll never know if the film would have become a total classic or a complete joke. But somehow, the idea of Mick, Keith, Brian, Bill and Charlie running amok in the streets of London as a nasty gang of youths sounds kind of appealing.